I used to scroll for hours, procrastinate like a pro, and then feel terrible about it. Then I started tricking my brain. Your brain isn't broken. It's designed to avoid hard work. The good news? Once you understand how your lazy brain actually works, you can flip its own tricks against it. Today, I'm sharing the exact system I used to go from chronic procrastinator to someone who consistently gets important stuff done without fighting my natural laziness. Chapter 1: Why Willpower Always Fails. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Willpower is a terrible strategy for getting things done. I spent years beating myself up for not having enough of it. Maybe you have too. Science shows that willpower is like a muscle that gets tired. Roy Baumeister's famous experiments found that willpower is a limited resource that depletes throughout the day. Each decision you make, each temptation you resist, drains your mental battery a little more. That's why you might start the day with good intentions, but end up on the couch scrolling through social media for hours by evening. Your willpower tank ran empty. Here's what's actually happening in your brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and self-control, gets exhausted. Meanwhile, your limbic system, the reward-seeking, pleasure-loving part, stays energized and ready to party. Quick recap. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes throughout the day. Relying on it is setting yourself up for failure. Your brain is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and fighting against this is exhausting. Coming up next, I'll share the simple mind trick that changed everything for me. Chapter 2: The 2-minute rule that changed everything. The first breakthrough came when I discovered what I call the ridiculous minimum. Here's how it works. Instead of setting ambitious goals like write for 2 hours or exercise for 45 minutes, you set a goal so stupidly small that your brain doesn't even register it as work. Want to start exercising? Your goal isn't to work out, it's to put on your workout clothes. That's it. Want to write a paper? Your goal isn't to write pages, it's to open the document and write one sentence. Want to clean your apartment? Your goal is to pick up just one thing. This might sound too simple to work, but here's the psychology behind it. Starting is always the hardest part. Your brain dramatizes tasks, making them seem bigger and more painful than they actually are. Once you start moving, Newton's first law kicks in. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. After writing one sentence, you'll likely write another. When I first tried this, I was skeptical, but I set a goal to just open my laptop and write one sentence of my thesis. No pressure to continue. Just one sentence. What happened next surprised me. After writing that one sentence, I naturally wrote another, and another. 2 hours later, I had written 4 pages. Quick recap. Set goals so small your brain doesn't register them as work. The ridiculous minimum bypasses your brain's resistance to starting, which is the biggest hurdle. Once you start, momentum often carries you forward. Chapter 3: The Environment Hack. Make laziness work for you. Your environment has a bigger impact on your behavior than your intentions do. This was my second big realization. I restructured my environment using what I call the path of least resistance principle. Make good behaviors easier than bad ones. Make bad behaviors harder than good ones. Here's how I did this. First, I identified my biggest distractions, my phone, social media, TV, and made them harder to access. I deleted social apps from my phone. I put my TV remote in a drawer in another room. I used website blockers during work hours. Then I made my desired behaviors ridiculously accessible. I set up my workout clothes the night before. Right beside my bed, I kept a book on top of my phone, so I'd have to move it to get to social media. I prepared my workspace each evening for the next morning. The results were immediate. I wasn't necessarily more motivated, I was just following the path of least resistance. My lazy brain actually helped me make better choices because the good choices became the easier choices. Quick recap. Restructure your environment. so good habits are easier than bad ones. Remove friction from positive behaviors and add friction to negative ones. This strategy works because it uses your lazy brain's tendency to follow the path of least resistance. Chapter 4: Temptation Bundling. How I made boring tasks fun. What if the secret to productivity wasn't fighting against what you enjoy, but strategically using it? That's the idea behind temptation bundling. It's when you combine something you need to do with something you want to do. Here's how I implemented it. I only allowed myself to listen to my favorite podcast while exercising. I only got to drink my favorite fancy coffee while working on my most important project. I only watched Netflix while folding laundry. This strategy created powerful associations in my brain. Instead of dreading exercise, I started looking forward to it because it meant I got to listen to the next episode of my podcast. Katie Milkman from Wharton conducted a study where people were only allowed to listen to addictive audiobooks while at the gym. The result? Gym attendance increased by 51%. The science here is simple. You're using your brain's reward system to your advantage. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation, gets linked to the previously boring task. Quick recap: temptation bundling links. Necessary tasks with enjoyable rewards, creating powerful motivation. This strategy uses your brain's natural desire for pleasure to make boring tasks more appealing. Chapter 5: The Just One Task Rule. My third breakthrough came when I realized I was setting myself up for failure with overwhelming to-do lists. Every morning, I'd make a list of 15 to 20 things I planned to accomplish. By evening, I'd have done maybe 3 to 4 of them and feel terrible about all the things I hadn't done. So I tried something radical: the just one task rule. Here's how it works. Each morning, I identify one important task that would make the day a success. I commit to completing only that task. Everything else is a bonus. At first, this felt like I was lowering my standards. But something surprising happened. I started accomplishing more, not less. Why? Because I eliminated the decision fatigue that came from constantly reprioritizing. I removed the guilt that used to drain my energy. I built momentum and confidence with consistent wins. A study from the American Psychological Association found that focusing on one task at a time is up to 40% more productive than multitasking or juggling multiple priorities. My productivity system now looks like this. Sunday evening, I choose the 5 to 7 most important tasks for the week. Each evening, I select one task from that list for the following day next morning. I work on that one task before anything else. Quick recap: the just one task rule simplifies decision-making, eliminates guilt, and builds momentum. By lowering the bar for what counts as a successful day, you paradoxically accomplish more. Chapter 6: The 5-minute reset button. No matter how good your system is, you'll have bad days. Days when you fall off track, when you procrastinate, when you spend hours scrolling instead of working. I used to let these setbacks spiral into days or weeks of low productivity. One bad morning would turn into a wasted day, which would turn into a wasted week. That changed when I discovered the 5-minute reset button. Here's how it works. Whenever I notice I've been procrastinating or feel stuck, I set a timer for 5 minutes. Close my eyes and take 10 deep breaths. Ask myself, what's one small thing I could do right now to get back on track? Do that one small thing immediately. This simple reset ritual interrupts the negative spiral and gives me a fresh start no matter what time of day it is. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that temporal landmarks, like the start of a new year, month, week, or even a new hour, serve as fresh start moments that help people mentally separate from past failures. My 5-minute reset creates an artificial fresh start whenever I need one. Instead of waiting for Monday or tomorrow morning to get back on track, I can reset at 3:27 p.m. on a Thursday. Quick recap: the 5-minute reset button interrupts negative spirals and creates artificial fresh starts throughout the day. This prevents small setbacks from derailing entire days or weeks. Chapter 7. Building Momentum. With Don't Break the Chain. One of the most powerful techniques I've found for outsmarting my lazy brain is what comedian Jerry Seinfeld calls Don't Break the Chain. The concept is simple. Get a calendar, physical or digital, mark an X for each day you complete your target behavior. Try not to break the chain of X's. The genius of this system is that it turns consistency into a game. Your only job is to not break the chain. I started with a ridiculously simple daily goal. Write for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. If I did that, I got my X for the day. The first week was easy. The second week, I had a day where I really didn't feel like writing. But the thought of breaking my 8-day chain was so unappealing that I sat down and did my 10 minutes. Why does this work so well? It leverages multiple psychological principles. Loss aversion. We hate losing streaks more than we enjoy starting new ones. Visual progress. Seeing the chain provides concrete evidence of your commitment identity reinforcement. Each X reinforces your identity as the type of person who writes daily. The key is starting with ridiculously achievable minimums. Don't try to write for 2 hours daily. Start with 10 minutes. Don't try to exercise for an hour. Start with 5 push-ups. Quick recap. The Don't Break the Chain technique turns consistency into a game and leverages our natural aversion to losing streaks. Starting with ridiculously small daily goals makes building long chains possible. Chapter 8. Putting it all together. My daily system. Let me walk you through what a typical day looks like with all these strategies working together. Evening before. I identify my one important task for tomorrow. I set up my environment, lay out exercise clothes, prepare workspace. I decide on my temptation bundle, what reward I'll pair with which task. Morning. I use the ridiculous minimum to start my day. Just put on workout clothes. I complete a 10-minute workout while listening to my favorite podcast, Temptation Bundling. I work on my one important task first, before checking messages throughout day. If I get off track, I use the 5-minute reset button. I stick to my predetermined temptation bundles. I mark my calendar for any habit chains I maintain. This system isn't about being perfect. It's about working with my lazy brain rather than fighting against it. The results speak for themselves. I've completed more important projects in the past 6 months than in the previous 2 years. My daily habits are more consistent than ever. I experience way less guilt and anxiety about productivity. Chapter 9. How to start your own lazy brain system today. If you're ready to try this approach, here's your simple 3-step plan. Step 1. Choose your one important task for tomorrow. What's one thing that would make tomorrow a success? Write it down and put it somewhere visible. Step 2. Define your ridiculous minimum. What's the smallest possible first step for that task? Make it so easy your brain can't object. Step 3. Set up one temptation bundle. What's something you enjoy that you could pair with a necessary task? Commit to only enjoying that reward while doing that task. That's it. Start small. Don't try to implement everything at once. Chapter 10. Conclusion. Laziness isn't the enemy. The biggest lesson I've learned is that laziness isn't a character flaw. It's a design feature of your brain. Your brain is optimized to conserve energy and seek rewards. That's not a bug. It's how we survived as a species. The traditional approach to productivity tells us to fight against these tendencies, to push harder, to use more willpower, to ignore our natural inclinations. But that approach leads to an exhausting, never-ending battle with yourself. The smarter approach is to work with your lazy brain, to set up systems that make good behaviors easier than bad ones, to tie rewards to necessary tasks, to lower the bar so far that you can't help but step over it. When you stop fighting your lazy brain and start leveraging its tendencies, everything changes. Productivity becomes less about force and more about flow. So stop beating yourself up for being lazy. Your lazy brain is actually incredibly efficient. It's just optimized for a different environment than the one we live in today. Hit subscribe to discover more brain hacks that make success almost effortless.